All right, we're going to jump into this exercise. And what's going to happen for this exercise is all of you have your these worksheets on your table. And these worksheets on your table have a peak on one side, right? And it says peaks equal our strengths. And in the other one, it's going to have a inverse triangle there that's going to be your valley that equals your challenges. And what you're going to be doing here is looking at your peak report. And on page 4, I believe it is, of your peak report, there is a summary graph there that shows you some peaks and some valleys. You may look at page 4, or you may turn it over to page 5, and then on page 5 you can see the differences even between leadership and congregation and where they experienced peaks and valleys. And what we're going to do in this exercise is we're going to identify one area of strength from your peak report, and you're going to write that area of strength on the top of your worksheet that says peak. And then you're going to identify one area that's a valley or a challenge from your peak report, and you're going to write that on the top of the sheet that says the valley. We are? I'm going to get there. So on the peaks, when you're looking at the peaks, you want to identify a strength to you that you recognize, hey, this is something that's an area of strength for us as a leadership team. It does not have to be the highest number, but choose one of the ones that is an area of strength that you may even want to unpack and understand further. The question that you're going to be asking at your table as you look at that strength is, why is this a strength for us? Why is this a strength? The reason why we need to understand and unpack why is it a strength is because we actually cannot reproduce something that we haven't defined. We have to define it. We have to understand why is it a strength in order that we can repeat it and reproduce it in other areas of our ministry and of our church. And so you're going to be choosing a strength that you want to understand. Let's unpack this. And when you consider why is it a strength, you're actually asking yourself, what are the habits? What are the practices? What are the structures? Maybe it's regular weekly meetings. Maybe it's a regular time of prayer. Maybe it's a committee. Maybe it's a person that has been in that department for 10 years and they just do it so well. So maybe you have good leadership there. What are the habits, the practices, maybe the repetitive patterns that you see within this area that makes it a strength? Why is it a strength? You guys tracking with me there? All right, so you're going to be identifying one to write up there. And then when you look at your valley, you're going to be looking at what is one area that is a valley on our peak report that we want to unpack and understand. Why is this a challenge? And to what Jennifer was mentioning, the one that I don't want you to choose is Brethren in Christ Partnership. And I don't want you to choose that one because we're trying to look at the ones that you have a lot of ownership over in the ministry of your church. And that one actually can have multiple different factors in relationship to the denomination and leadership. So we're just going to set that one aside. Doesn't mean you can't unpack that one at another time. But for today's exercise, we want you to focus on one that really you have ownership over within your church and the ministry and structures you have there. Does that make sense? And as you look at your valley, you're asking the same question. Why is this a challenge? What are maybe the lacking habits, practices, leadership, people involved in this area that are creating a challenge for us? Be careful as you look at your challenge that most of your responses should be things that you could change or control. So sometimes it's easy in an area such as maybe missions focus to say people are busy and don't want to come to church anymore, right? Is that an area, okay, that might be why it's a challenge, but is that an area you can change? No, you don't have ownership over that. So why is it a challenge for you, your leadership team, your church in that area, all right? You guys got the exercise? Write your peak at the top, write your valley at the top, and then start asking your questions. Why is this a strength? Why is this challenge a challenge? All right, go for it. We're going to walk around and facilitate you as you go as well. I'm just going to tie us back to what we said from the beginning, that these, remember, are tools that we're teaching to you that you can then even take back and do again. So the idea here is that you can continue these conversations around other areas, either of your peak report or another area of ministry. It might be that you have some other particular place that you want to say, hey, this is a strength for us. This is going and growing. Why is that? What can we learn from it that we might be able to apply to an area that is a challenge? So what we're trying to teach you here is just how to have this conversation, how to look as a mirror through. This is a principle of organizational health and management, is to actually recognize most of the time what you need in order to create lift in an area of challenge you already are equipped for. You actually are already equipped for it. And what we need to do is actually to apply the habits and the practices that we already put into place in another area and put those and apply those in an area of challenge that we experience. So I want some feedback. I would love to hear from the groups. When you a feedback point that you made in relating the two together. So you need to name, this was our strength, this is our challenge, and what we are learning or what we are seeing tied between the two of these. Okay, is an area that we can maybe apply to our challenge that we learned is a strength for us. You guys understand? We're going to do what is the connection point that you made between your strength and your challenge? Who wants to go first? I'm going to just name something that is common among all of you. I think everyone did a strength of worship gathering. Did everyone do a strength of worship? Did anyone not do worship? Everyone did worship gathering. Okay. There's something that happens. People are coming to your church and responding to your survey because they've chosen to go to your church. And so usually that means they like the worship gathering. Most of the time, once the worship gathering starts to become decentralized in someone's life, that's when they start looking and moving on to other churches. And so there also is a recognition of two things at play. One thing is worship gathering is a strength because the people who are here want to be here and they're liking something about what we're doing at the worship gathering. But if you're a church that's encountering we actually need to reach beyond the people who are here, then you might need to start thinking through your worship gathering. Okay, and that's a hard one to sometimes look in the mirror for. But we might need to look at it in a different way and not let just what's reported to us on the report be the barometer for what's happening. The second part of the worship gathering, though, why I do encourage and I like when you use it in this exercise is because almost all of your resources, time, attention on a given week is to the weekly rhythm of a Sunday service, right? So there's a designated time on the calendar and resources that are put into it. So it is pretty easy for you to start seeing, there's also a reason why this can be a strength within us is because we have a weekly rhythm of it. We have a weekly team for it. We have a person who is designated every week to stand in front of the people for worship and for preaching. So there's some natural things built into it that are helpful to reflect on as exercises. So that is a great place to start as you're learning how to do this exercise. But yeah, you can take it a step further and do it with other strengths and other peaks that you have as well.